Hello to all our single moms all over the world. And thank you so much for joining us on our 5th episode of A Conversation with a Single Mother. Can you believe it that we are already on the 5th episode? This is a great achievement and we are so honored to have you on this episode. My name is Ntabiseng Mage, as you all know me. And today I'll be talking about a very brilliant topic which I feel every parent, every woman, every father or every man needs to hear about. So you better get those notepads, you better get those pens, sit down and listen attentively. I hope you are ready. And please share the broadcast. Please make sure that all your parents, all your single moms, and any parent that you know is aware that we are currently live and we are talking about a very important topic that is going to help you and that is going to make you become better, because we want the best of you, isn't it? Today we are doing things a little bit differently. I'm alone in studio, but I'm not really alone. My guests, they are in studio, but they're in a different part of South Africa. So don't be surprised when I'm engaging with screens today. Don't be too surprised. My guests are with me in spirit, but they're in different parts of South Africa. So, but be rest assured that these guests are going to be pouring out from the wealth, the abundance of their wisdom. I told you that the family unit is the most fundamental unit. It meaning that it helps a human being grow well and discover who they are, discover why they are who they are and why they are here on this earth. The family unit provides a methodology for life. I say a methodology because I honestly don't believe that as a parent I should impose my will, I should impose what I want to see in my children. I should rather give them a method for life so that when they are older, they are able to know what to do. How this human being will grow in our care is very fundamental. And how we help this human being make decisions is very fundamental. And the decision that we inspire them to take will either become a benefit to society or become society's biggest nightmare. Unfortunately, in the environment where the role of parenting is not understood, the children will also not understand themselves. Hence, disobedience is at its peak in today's world. We talk about corruption, but we've never really checked who raised and how was the corrupter raised. We talk about bullying, but we never really interrogate how the bully was raised. We talk about murder, we talk about a rapist, but we've never really interrogated how these individuals were raised. Every child is a product of their parents. Every child is a product of how they were raised. It's a fact. In most cases, when a child does something wrong, the first thing we should ask ourselves is, who raised this child and how was this child raised? That is why today we are discussing intentional parenting, which is a very big topic and very close to my heart. I feel this is one of those topics that every mother, every father should be exposed to, because we need this. And in the absence of good parenting, unfortunately, the world will never become a better place. This is meant to help parents become better. It is meant to help single mothers be inspired to become better parents. I know that this topic, yes, it's meant, on our side, it's meant for single mothers, but it's still necessary for anyone who is a parent. And my wish is that those single mothers who are exposed to this program will enroll on our mentorship program. Tonight, I am in studio with a very good friend of mine, Pearl. She's not in studio with me physically, but she's in Pretoria. And this is a woman I've known for quite some time. I was in high school with her. We were friends, actually. We were friends. Do you remember, Pearl? We were very good friends. And then until we had to part ways, she went to a different varsity. And yeah, today she's an occupational therapist and she works a lot with parents. She works a lot with children. Welcome in studio, Pearl. How are you and how is Pretoria?
Hi, Tavi. Well, thank you for having me. Pretoria is cold. I actually miss home right now, but Pretoria is cold and I'm well. Thank you for having me. What a
Oh,
wonderful initiative you've got.
thank you. Thank you. It's actually a pleasure to have you. By the way, don't be fooled by the English, eh? Ukwabulubedu, ke munyana wa Bulubedu, ukwabochabelo. So yes, she's my home girl. She's my home girl. Ukhona wa Kilubedu. So don't be surprised when we, tap into Kilubedu nyana as we proceed with the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much. We are discussing a very important topic. You're an occupational therapist. I know that you deal a lot with parents. You deal a lot with children. You actually have your own crash where you deal, literally and physically with children on a daily basis. And issues of parenting are very serious because every one of us comes from a home. We come from a home and we were raised by parents, whether they are our biological parents or not, but we had some form of guardian whom we can refer to as a parent. But today we are seeing a whole lot of social ills, and scientifically it has been proven that most of these can be traced or can be attributed back to the home environment. So, my lady, I need you to explain to us what is intentional parenting, what is parenting, what would constitute intentional parenting, especially in single parented household. What would constitute intentional parenting?
Wow, it's a very complex term, but basically, if you were to break it down, intention ka kilometers goods message. So being intentional or having an intent in what you are doing in your parenting. So it's basically just having a plan or an understanding of a goal you want to reach that will guide you on a day-to-day basis on how you want to go about getting to that goal as a parent. So basically, it's your priorities. What are you prioritizing as a parent? Those priorities will also guide your day-to-day action. So basically, for example, if you're a parent and you want your child to be a what is this? Springbok player, your intention or your day-to-day actions will be making sure that they attend every rugby clinic there is, taking them to gym, getting them the right nutrition and all of those things. So but it's all about what are you prioritizing as a parent on a day-to-day basis. So that's basically what intentional parenting is all about. So if you are a parent that wants to raise a godly child, for example. So you would your intentional actions would include reading the Bible with your child every day, praying with your child every day, going to church with your child, or when you go to church, or even fostering a Christian environment in your home. So at the end of the day, you have a child that knows that there is a God, and this is how a Christian is distinguished from a non-Christian. So your priorities that guide your actions. That's basically what intentional parenting is all about.
I like that response because you are indirectly saying that there should be an intent, and in a case where there is no intent, something else will come through and will propel the child to be something that you did not plan, or some way somehow. It's like it's like thoughts. When you are thinking, when you are engaged in a thought process, one cannot say, no, I'm not thinking, I'm just sitting and doing nothing. If you're not thinking about something positive, something negative, or something else will pop up into your mind, which will consume your energy. So I like that explanation because it indicates that when you don't have an intent, something else will come through and propel your child to be something that you don't necessarily want. And in a case where you do have an intent, you must engage on a day-to-day basis. You must have day-to-day activities that will propel your child to become that which you want them to become. And that is something that in the Black community we have not seen. We have not experienced something like that because of course, all of us want our children to be successful. We want our children to be kind. We want our children to be these successful individuals doing good in business. But we don't have a plan. You spoke about a plan. We don't have a day-to-day plan that will propel them to become the success that we envisage or that we want to see in them. So tell me, is it true that single parenting can yield different results on the growth and the development of a child compared to when a child is raised by both parents? And if that is the case, how can a single parent avoid the negative effects of single parenting?
It is true and not so true. Ne? My view of it is that a child in itself, it's always dependent on the environment, right? So, you know the saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. So you can have a positive village and a negative village. So you can have a child that grows up in a home that has got both parents, but still a negative environment in it. And then you can have a child that's raised by a single parent and have a more well-balanced environment. So you see, because some of us, you see, parenting, let me start it this way. Parenting is dependent on you. It starts with you, you the parent. Because how you the parent parents the child, it tells a story. What kind of story is it telling? It's telling your family of origin, where you come from, how you internalized how you were raised, and how you are now projecting it onto the child. You see? So a single parent, yes, they can have shortfalls here and there, but if they have a good support structure, that child would come out as good as a child that grew up in a married home.
So can you wait right there? So basically what you are saying is that how a child is raised is very independent on the well-being of the parent. It's very independent on the well-being of the parent. So it matters how the parent is on the inside, how they are with themselves alone, besides the child. So it's amazing that we can actually project our negative backgrounds, our negative exposures, and all these things that we've been through on our children. So the first place to start is actually ourselves. So it's actually us.
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that is the starting point, because some of us tend to negate how we were brought up versus how we are bringing up our children.
Yeah.
Because most of the time you would hear a person saying, I don't want my child to be raised up the way I was.
Yeah.
So if you were to listen to that sentence, you would want to know more about how were you raised.
Yeah.
What about it makes you think it made you turn out negative, or it made you turn out not to be a good person, you see? So it's all about how you internalized your family of origin. But then as well, if there were negative things that happened in your family of religion, it is always better to first heal from it. Become whole by yourself, so that so that you can move forward positively. Because if you're struggling with things from your past, or even the reason you became a single parent, most of the time those become triggers on how we raised our children as single parents. Because, for example, the child, you have a boy child.
Yeah.
That child probably looks like his father than he does you. And if the parting terms were not good, what is going to happen if you have not healed from the reasons why you guys parted? you're going to have feelings of resentment towards the child. It's not that the child did anything wrong, but it's because you were hurt, you were not healed, now you're bleeding over the child. So the child becomes a constant trigger. To the feelings of resentment in you. Although, yes, you love your child, this is your child, but because this child now, your past or the father, then it becomes a problem. So from there, then you'll have a child that now and again, children are more spiritual than we are.
Yes.
They catch more than what we say. So even though you might say, I love you, but certain times there are feelings of resentment that come through you. That child latches on to that resentment. They feed in from that resentment. And now and again, you see some actions. So the key is always heal from whatever caused whatever made you a single parent to whatever caused you or the hurts from your family of origin. So it starts with you.
It starts
with you as a parent. Because there's this one lady that I had in our school. This one time, she was bringing the child to the school, and this child dropped something. And the mother said, hey, you useless like your father. You hear that she's projecting things, internal things, onto the child. The child just dropped something, and now the child dropping something triggered a memory in her. And instead of saying, it's okay, my baby, you made a mistake, you are useless like your father. So you see that single parenting, or even parenting in itself, there's actually no difference. It's just that the other one has more support than the other. But parenting in itself, it starts with you, how you are internally. Are you a safe place for yourself? How do you talk to yourself? And how do you process information and output by yourself before it even goes to the child? So the child's output is.
I actually like what you said. You spoke about healing, and becoming whole, because it starts with you. And what you are, or the conversations that you have with yourself, will ultimately be projected on the children. So tell me, how can a single mother heal? Because that is very important. I'm listening to you. I'm a single mother somewhere, and I'm wounded, and I constantly lash at my children. And sometimes I even pass those comments that you've just mentioned now, that you are useless like your father and all that. How do I heal? Because in our previous episodes, we also touched on issues of subconscious mind. Sometimes, because of the exposures and the hurts, sometimes you do it unconsciously. You realize that this thing is something that you don't want to do, but you still do it. You find yourself lashing out, and sometimes some parents even beat. They even beat their children. How do you heal? How do you make sure that those terrible events and exposures that you've been through, how do you make sure that they are wiped out from your conscious and your subconscious mind? Tell me about that, and how can you assist single mothers?
Two things: self-awareness and therapy.
Yeah.
Self-awareness means that you need to be aware of the problem that you have, and intentionally. See, it goes back to the intentional parenting.
Yeah.
Yes. So intentionally be conscious of your thought process.
Yeah.
Intentionally introspect yourself of what are the triggers of these feelings? Where did these feelings start, and why am I still harboring them? So self-awareness. And I know as Black people, we don't really believe in therapy, but it is very much helpful to go there and talk it through. Sometimes when you talk it through, and you are given all these other skills on how to manage the anger, because parting ways and woundedness goes with bitterness, unforgiveness, anger, and all of those things. So going to therapy, they will help you through those processes, because I can't really give you how do you, because that is case specific. Yeah, that's quite case specific. But two of those things: self-awareness and therapy. So intentionally being aware of your own feelings, your triggers, your blind spots, and then also seeking support. Obviously, you need to have a confidant, somebody you can say that I can go to speak to this person and I know that I can be open with them. So if you can't find that person, then therapy is the best way for you to go. So being self-aware is always the first part. The starting point, being self-aware.
I just love your responses, because you are making me aware that intentional parenting is nothing in the absence of self-awareness, self-introspection, starting with me. It starts with me. It starts with me doing an introspection of myself, studying me. Before I can even study my children, I should be able to have a conversation with myself and say, Ntabi, you are lacking here, there, and there. So this is what you must learn to correct. And in doing so, I am able to project a better person to my children. In any case, children learn from observation. I mean, wisdom says, train a child in the way that they should go, so that when they are older, they will not be able to depart from the principles and the values that you would have taught them. But the training is not only a teaching session where I tell you what to do. It's also by observation. And we have seen it. I mean, there are some people, I'll make an example with myself. I grew up in my father was a disciplinarian. And, I took that, because at some point I had to calm myself and say, no, Ntabi, you are too much, Everything has to be, up to par. So I realized that, no, this is something that was continuously impressed on my subconscious mind. So I became that because of exposure. So when you train yourself in kindness, my viewers, you train yourself in kindness and you project that to your children. That's what they become. When you project a love, you culture them in a religion of love, they become love. So I love that. I love that. So now tell me, I've got a whole lot of single parents who have, they are single parents, by the way. They don't have fathers coming in and supporting their children, whether presence or financially, but I want to focus more on the presence part today. These mothers have got these kids, and these kids are only exposed to the feminine side, because a woman is feminine, isn't it? They're only exposed to the feminine side. The kids are not exposed to the masculine side, which is supposed to be given by the father. So in that case, what can a single mother do? Because we know that when we release a child into society, we need to release a balanced adult or a balanced human being who has been exposed to both the masculine and the feminine side. What can our single mothers do in order to balance that? Because I feel that is also part of intentional parenting in some way. The father is not there, the father is absent, but we need to make sure that we release a balanced adult or human being into society. What can I do as a single mother? And please, you can take this back to the context of it takes a village to raise a child. Yes.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say, that it goes back to that African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. My understanding of that proverb was the fact that in villages where we grew up, yes, Kinawa Haramutwala, and our neighbors Kiba Mabulana, and then the other side Kiba Mohal. I'm not just Mwana Waka Haramutwala Fela. My kids, or me as a child, the parents of the different households, they were allowed to have an input in my behavior or in my conduct, and then my parents would not be offended by it, you see. Yeah. So there was a community of parenting. So if they saw me doing something wrong, they were allowed to say, but what you're doing is not right. Yeah. Unlike now, you see, unfortunately right now, everybody is so self-centered that if anyone comes and say, but I saw your child doing this, they say, when again, that kind of thing. So we are as a self-centered community right now, but we can still apply the same proverb
Yeah.
in our situation, because a village just means a community, a support system. It takes a support system, or it takes a community to raise a child. So who is your community? Who is your safe space right now? Do you have a sibling that is married that can help you with exposure of the child to a full family setting? So, for example, my younger brother is married. They have 2 children.
Yeah.
So, if I was a single parent, I would say now during school holidays, my children can go visit my brother and his wife, so that they can hear the voice of a male.
Yeah.
Because they're used to the voice of a female, and sometimes the voice of a female, it can it's too nurturing.
Yeah.
So a voice of a male also has that corrective measure into it. Yeah. So I would say my children can go visit my brother. So how do we now balance? Who is your support system?
Yeah.
Are there males in your support system that you trust, that can speak over your child's life? That is one way of identifying your support system, or trying to create an environment that is a balanced environment for your child. Are there males in your life that can speak over your life that you won't have reservations about?
Okay.
So those are that's the support structure you can create for your child. Your siblings that can speak, the uncles that can speak, the grandparents that can still speak. So you don't necessarily have to feel despair to such that I am a single parent, I don't have a male figure in my life. No, your father is still a male figure in your life. And your father can be a male voice over your child. Even your pastor.
Yeah.
If you trust your pastor, I would believe that because he's your pastor, you trust him. He can be a voice over your child. Such environments it's what is needed. So, and you never really are in despair, but you have to intentionally and actively be involved in the whole process.
I love that. You have to intentionally and be actively be involved in the process. It's intentional parenting. These are the 3 questions which I chose to ask our occupational therapist. By the way, Pearl is also our intentional parenting mentor on our mentorship program for single mothers. So this is just a glimpse of some of the things that we are going to be talking about in that program. And I chose these questions because I want you to understand, at least have an idea of what intentional parenting is. She spoke about self-awareness. You have to be aware of yourself as a parent. That's the first. Then the second thing, you need to have a plan. I love that. You need to have a plan. You need to have a plan. You have to work on yourself. And even in your engagements where you want to expose your child to different side, the feminine or the masculine side, you need to ensure that you are actively involved in that process. So that is that from our occupational therapist for today. If you honestly need more, you are welcome to follow her on Facebook. Her social media handle will be displayed on our on our screen. You can follow her on Facebook. But most importantly, if you want to really enjoy the wealth of wisdom that is in this woman, you can enroll on our mentorship program on our website, or you can send me a WhatsApp message on 079 079 2644. The details are displayed on the screen as I'm speaking right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will be engaging with you more on other things. Let's talk.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Wow, what a time.
I'm joined in studio by a beautiful lady all the way from the mother city, Cape Town. Who would have thought? We are also live in Cape Town today. Hi, Gwen. Hi, sis Gwen. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm so great. By the way, Gwen is also, she's a single mother, but she's also an entrepreneur. So the reason why we invited her is because we just want you to get a feel of intentional parenting. There are actually some single mothers who have implemented this thing called intentional parenting or purposeful parenting. So that's why we invited her on set, because we want her to share her experience as an intentional parent. I love it. I went through your Facebook statuses and I was so impressed with what you write concerning purposeful or intentional parenting. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yes.
So then tell me, why did you
you.
decide to raise your children with purpose? What do you aim to achieve with that?
You know, the beautiful part is that some of us were brought up by not single parents, but by a partnership of parents, both my mom and my dad. But that doesn't mean that we are all going to be lucky at the end of the day and be in the same partnership that you were brought up, who you were as a parent. So then when I found myself being a single parent, and at the age of 24, I found myself being a single parent to 2 children, a girl and a boy. And I thought to myself, you know what? I have been privileged to have parenting of a pastor and a teacher. And I looked at the future and thought to myself, now that I am on my own, I need to try and balance as much as possible to feed the kids, to make sure that the kids are okay, but at the same time to also be there for them, so that in future, the very same kids should be able to pass that to their children. And the only way for them to do that is to bring them up in a way that they shouldn't be broken kids. It may have been a broken marriage, but it doesn't determine that the kids should also then suffer just because me and my partner were not able to bring them up in a partnership. Then I decided, you know, that I saw that it wasn't working in the Yoruba. I'm employed. I have children. I have to be a mother. I have to be an employee, and I have to provide, obviously. Then I sat down and thought to myself, you know what? For me to pass down what I got from my parents, the humbleness that I got from my parents, the determination, the hardworking, and the financial, emotional support that I got from them. Unfortunately, I found myself being alone, having to pass that down to them, so as to ensure that when they are adults, they will be adults that are fair to their children. That's a whole point of making sure that you bring up your children so that the legacy that they enhance to the next generation is not broken.
I love that you said you don't want to raise broken children, and because you were not raised in a broken way, this is something, you were not exposed to a broken environment, so you are not a broken person. So you want to project your unbrokenness. I won't call it another way. I just call it unbrokenness to your children. You want your children to be well. You want your children to be whole. You want your children to be well-rounded individuals in society. I love that. I love that. And you mentioned that there are challenges, of course. There are challenges that single parents do face. But you did some introspection on yourself. You have some self-awareness of yourself, and you identified areas that you could improve so that you can give to your children that which you received from your parents, even though, unlike your parents, you are alone. So tell me, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges that you are facing as a single mother?
It's difficult being a single mother. Because remember, you are playing a dual role. You have to be both a mother and a father. And not locking out Abo Baba, because some of the fathers are also facing the very same challenges that we face as single mothers. They are single fathers. So being a single parent means you have to balance being a mother and a father, and at the same time not neglecting yourself. Because if you neglect yourself, you're not going to be able to balance both of these things and give all the love to the children, because you don't love yourself. It starts with you loving yourself. So the challenges that I faced, as I've just hinted a little bit, that having to provide financially, because unfortunately most of the partners, when they move on to the next relationship, they forget that they have financial obligations. So now you find yourself having to provide financially, emotionally, and otherwise. You have to be this superwoman who has to balance zonke izinto from all angles. And the most difficult and frustrating part of all this is that, imagine, I'll give you a scenario. Imagine this 24-year-old who is now a single parent, who has a 6-year-old and who has a 3-year-old, and obviously who is such a young, beautiful woman who still also needs nurturing, who also needs love, who also still believes that there is a partner out there who could potentially be involved in raising these kids. That's where we find challenges, whereby you start neglecting yourself, because the minute you start neglecting yourself, your children will never know love. Your children will always think that once there's a divorce in the family, that's the end of love. That's the main thing that single parents always face, because now you're thinking of, you're a bit skeptical of introducing someone else into this pocket that you have created. I know there's also other challenges that are financial and this and that, but the main thing that makes your children to be broken children is that they do not know love in this circle that you have created.
I love that, because even our previous speaker emphasized on self-awareness. Being aware of yourself and having a conversation with yourself, understanding who you are before we can even say Gwen is a parent. Understanding who Gwen is. So that is Gwen very important.
Exactly.
Because I mean, it's very easy to project things to your children because of what you were exposed to, your past hurts and all these other many things, and your wholeness, your ability to be okay with yourself has an impact on all other things, even financially. It means if you are not okay, your finances will not be all right, and you need those finances to take care of your children. So this is very, very interesting, and I love that. I love the fact that you are raising it again, because even our previous speaker spoke a lot on self-awareness, that it is very important for the single mothers to be self-aware, to take care of themselves first, because when you are okay, your children will be all right. Your children will be all right.
Exactly.
So what do you think single parents, particularly single mothers, tend to ignore? I know that you've mentioned it, and I think your answer is already talking to this one as well, but I want you to expand more on it. What do you think single mothers tend to ignore about themselves when parenting? It can be economically or socially. How can these affect their children?
As I have also mentioned, the part of loving yourself first. The next part is that, we are so stereotyped in the fact that we always see employment as a solution. We always think that being employed is the only way for you to provide. And half the time you find yourself being employed in an employment that doesn't allow you to be there for your children. And besides that, you also have to be able to get to a space whereby you kind of introduce the fact that entrepreneurship in your family should also exist from an early childhood, because not all your children are going to be academics. Some of them are going to be hustlers. So those are the things that we neglect. Not only Tina, as you as a mother, but you also neglect what you are enforcing to your children. Do not only enforce academics to your children. How can you enforce academics to an employer? Like I mentioned on my post previously, that the reason we have so many children that are unemployed is because we're always focusing on making sure they have degrees, they have the academics. Who's going to be their employer?
Yes.
It's the very same son in your house who doesn't want to complete matric. What does he love? Do not neglect those things.
I like that, because when you as the mother are an entrepreneur, you can project that to your children, and amazingly they will become entrepreneurs. I'll make an example with myself. My father is a businessman, and some way somehow I found myself doing business later on in life, and
exactly.
I love this point of entrepreneurship, because this is one of the programs that we are offering in our mentorship program. You can enroll on our mentorship program for Comfort a Single Mother, learn how to become an entrepreneur, project that on your children. And let me tell you, in the age we are living in, I love that you've mentioned it, in the age that we are living in, unfortunately, there are no more jobs. Jobs, the unemployment rate has skyrocketed. So it means that we need more entrepreneurs. So you teach yourself to become an entrepreneur so that you can project that also on your children. It's the probability of your child not becoming an entrepreneur when you are an entrepreneur are close to zero. So I love that. So what advice, just to wrap up, because we only have 3 minutes left, what advice would you give to single mothers in 1 or 2 sentences? What advice would you give to single mothers in relation to the topic of today?
First of all, when you find yourself being a single parent, it's not the end of the world. You don't need anyone else to assist you. You need yourself to master the craft of being a single parent. How do you do that? Love yourself.
Yeah.
Love yourself enough to know that these children have always been your responsibility, even if you were in a partnership. They have always been your responsibility. We have parents who are married, but there are single parents in marriage.
Oh, yes.
So finding yourself in a space whereby you've become a single parent is not the end of the world. Yeah. It is actually the beginning of liberation for you to enforce what you have always wanted and what you have always dreamt of, molding your children without anyone disturbing you. You want your children to be entrepreneurs. It is now your chance to do exactly that. You want your children to be academics. You do exactly that. But it all starts with loving yourself. Love yourself enough to love your children and raise them.
Thank you so very much, Gwen, for joining us on tonight's session. Oh, thank you. I don't even know what to say, because the points you've raised are exactly, it's like you're confirming exactly what we have been talking about and what we've been thinking. That self-awareness, self-love, it begins with you. Whether the father is there or not, the responsibility to parent, it's still yours. You cannot delegate it. You cannot second it to somebody else. It is yours. So the first thing you can do is work on yourself so that you enjoy this journey of being a parent. Thank you so much, Gwen, for joining us tonight. And I hope we are going to have lots more of these kind of sessions and talk more. Thank you.
You're welcome, dear. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Pleasure.
Yes.
Cheers. You heard for yourselves, my single moms and dads. You heard for yourself, both our guests emphasized a lot on self-awareness, self-love, loving yourself first, because that is very fundamental to how your children are going to love themselves. When you can't love yourself, when you're not aware of yourself, unfortunately, your children will also become that way. So the first point of departure in parenting or in intentional parenting is to start with you. So, but if you really want to be mentored and be taken through this journey of parenting, you are welcome to join me on my mentorship program on www.comfortasinglemom.co.za. You can enroll for our mentorship program on that website. The details are displayed on the screen. You can also follow me on all my social media handles at Comfort a Single Mother and at Ntabiseng Make. Follow all our posts. We are going to be publishing all the posters concerning our mentorship program there. So enroll and be empowered. Be empowered to become an entrepreneur. If you want your children to become entrepreneurs, be empowered to become self-aware of yourself, because one of the programs that we're offering is purposepreneurship. There is no way you can discover your purpose when you haven't discovered who you are, when you are not aware of yourself. Join me also as I unbundle this topic of intentional parenting, which is very fundamental to today's generation. Thank you so much for joining me, and ta-ta.